It is necessary for the recording of sound to convert the sound waves to corresponding changes in light. The sound waves produced by my voice are transmitted through the air to the microphone, where these sound waves are converted to changes in an electric current. These variations in the electric current are then amplified and used to control the light. This varying beam of light falling on the photoelectric cell produces variations in the electric current, which are directly proportional to the variations in the light beam. The sound track. As the varying electrical current in the photoelectric cell is small, a vacuum tube amplifier is required to increase it to the point where it will operate a loudspeaker. Sound track.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. Today's episode, I got the usual suspect with me again. I got Lisa. What is going on, Lisa?
How's it going? Good?
Good. Very good. Very good. And I appreciate you jumping on again this Friday.
Absolutely. This is exciting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And maybe a sneak peek for some of our listeners. We'll quite possibly be doing it again next Friday. So... But in today's episode of the Occult Rejects, we're going to be covering grimoires and manuscripts. Some of them not too well known, maybe some of them a little bit more obscure. And the reasoning I wanted to do it, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, and I have done some of it on the NY Patriot show. I think there might be like a lack of knowing about how far some magic grimoires go. How far back were people practicing this stuff? It was prior to some of the societies people like pointing the finger at constantly. So I just thought this would be very informational, and it was actually kind of interesting for me because it is very interesting to see different parts of the world that have, grimoires and, just different people that are involved. And then if you happen to be able to look into their history, if there is anything about them, depending on how old it is, you can see the people they were surrounded with. And that just makes it even more interesting. So like last week and this week, and I'm hoping the week afterwards, I'll just be doing a little bit of like informational stuff for people interested in occultism and magic. And just trying to show some of, I guess, the OGs or where some of the stuff we have now got influenced from. So I think, I've said this before, and, I've heard plenty of shows. Most of them are just for entertainment purposes and actually really don't give a shit about educating people. I've heard them actually come out and say, like on shows that I was on, roundtables or just out of their own mouth, why do we care about covering so much that's gone on in the future? Well, my opinion, gone on in the past. My opinion is we have zero idea what the fuck's going on right now.
That's true.
So maybe if we looked into the past and saw things that were done and how it was done and how it was pulled off and what was behind it, we might have ideas of what's going on now. That's just my thought. I could be wrong, though. So, I guess to shut up and get into it, we're going to pull up a grimoire that I think I have mentioned probably multiple times in the past. And part of the reason why I wanted to focus on this one is because technically, or how it's known or written in this book, The Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage, the whole point of this book is to come in contact with your holy guardian angel. As a magician, in my opinion, if you're a magician for the right reasons, and you're studying occultism for the right reasons, your whole aim is to come to know of and have conversation with your holy guardian angel, your higher self, God, whatever, your higher power, however people want to call it. So I thought this was kind of like an interesting grimoire to go over with, since a lot of occultists and magicians prescribe to this or try to do this or versions of it. And many people may not know that. So To get into it, the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage. The book of Abramelin tells the story of an Egyptian mage named Abraham or Abramelin, who taught a system of magic to Abraham of Worms, a Jew in Worms, Germany. Find out there was a place called Worms in Germany. And presumed to have lived from 1362 to 1458. That's pretty old. The system of magic from this book regained popularity in the 19th and 20th centuries, partly due to Samuel MacGregor Mather's translation. The Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. So kept it the same name. The work was translated into English by Samuel L. MacGregor Mathers, and more recently by, I could be saying his name wrong, George Den and Stephen Guth. Den attributed authorship of the Book of Abramelin to, these are all just theories and ideas, to a Rabbi Yaakov Molin, who was from 1365 to 1427. And he was a German Talmudist. And this, idea has been disputed. So just reiterating that. The book exists in the form of 12 manuscripts and an early printed edition. The province of the text has been definitely identified. The earliest manuscripts are two versions that date from about 1608 and are written in German and are now found in Wolfenbüttel. I said that correctly. Another two manuscripts. Yeah, right. I don't know. I might have been correct with that one.
I think so.
Yeah. Get a gold star on that one.
There you go.
Yeah, another two manuscripts are in Dresden and date from about 1700s and 1750, respectively. The first printed version is also in German and dates to 1725 and was printed in Cologne by Peter Hammer. A partial copy in Hebrew is found in the Bodleian Library in Oxford and dates from around 1740. An 18th century manuscript copy exists in French in the Bibliothèque d'Arsenal in Paris, an institution founded in 1757. Another 17th century manuscript in Italian exists in the Legato Martinego of the I don't even know how to say this, library in Italy. and it was part of the collection of the Count and Kabbalist Lepardo Martinengo of Barco. And the manuscript was unknown for centuries to international researchers until about 2009 and has been found by academic researcher Maria Elena Loda in the esoteric section. At the moment, it is the only known manuscript translation in the Italian language of the Abramelin grimoire. So, for everything that I was just saying right there, it was just basically to get to the point that is the only one in Italian. Old German copies of the text consist of 4 books, an autobiographical account of the travels of Abraham of Worms to Egypt, a book of assorted materials from the corpus of the practical cabala, including some which is duplicated in the German Jewish grimoire called the 6th and 7th Books of Moses. That is another thing, too. Some people may not know this. When it comes to grimoires and magic, there is plenty of books out there that were supposedly about Moses' magic. Some people may not know this, but Moses and Jesus, actually, from occultists, are looked at as some of the OGs. So, a little interesting. Wanted to add that in there. That's why some people actually, cultists and ceremonial magic and magicians, some of them use Moses' stuff. And the 2 books of magic given by Abramelin to Abraham. The well-known English translation by S.L. MacGregor Mathers from the French manuscript in Paris contains only 3 of the 4 books. The ritual as described in Mathers' manuscripts last 6 months. And for people out there that might be interested in what's going on in this thing, that it takes that long, I suggest to go on, I think it's on Netflix, and look up the movie A Dark Song. Except for the one small clip of sexual stuff going on, which is actually, this is, I'll be giving it away, but I think it's even mentioned in the movie. Like, that wasn't actually part of the ritual. But there are, that, in my opinion, except for that one little sexual part that they show in that movie, I think it's actually a very, very good description of the Abramelin. And if you do happen to watch it, I want you to please pay attention to what was going on through that woman's mind and what changed. And then her holy guardian angel showed up. If people watch, please pay attention to how that woman's mind and the things that she let go of was able to make this happen. I think it's actually very fucking powerful if you realize what just happened. So, it is supposed to take 6 months at least. Newer compilations in translation contain all 4 books and describe a duration of 18 months. Crowley had attempted this ritual supposedly at Bullskin and never made it to the end and left. I don't know how true that is, but that is also some of the reasons why when people have gone there, they think they're having paranormal effects because he never stopped the Abramelin. Who knows? And the Hebrew version is in Oxford and is limited to book 1 without reference to the further books. Of all the sources, the German manuscript in Wolfenbüttel and Dresden are taken by scholars to be the authoritative text. According to respected Kabbalah scholar Gershom Scholem, the Hebrew version in Oxford was translated into Hebrew from German. An analysis of the spelling and language usage in the French manuscripts indicates that it dates to the 18th century and that it was also likely copied from a German original. Although the author quotes from the Jewish book of Psalms, the version given is not from the Hebrew, rather it is from the Latin, a translation of the Bible employed by Roman Catholics at that time. The German esoteric scholar George Den has argued that the author of the Book of Abramelin was Rabbi Yaakov Molin, again, I had mentioned that, a German Jewish Talmudist and posek. In case you're not sure, if I even said that correctly, in case you're not sure what posek, pisek, whatever it was, that is an authority on Jewish law. The text was originally written in German. A German edition was published under the fictitious name Peter Hammer in 1725 and reprinted by J. Scheibel Stuttgart, and that was around 1853. This edition was based on one of the earlier, more complete German manuscripts from the 17th and 18th century. What is absolutely mind-blowing is that Peter Hammer text was entirely unknown, and to Mathers as well, but to all the other members of the Golden Dawn who, between them and noted the collection just about every, the Golden Dawn was very good with collecting a lot of stuff, so this actually was very unknown to them and Mathers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All German copies of the, supposedly.
Yeah.
If you're going to take all these magicians in high places' words, at face value.
Right.
All German copies of the text consist of 4 books. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. But, so that really, and again, just to repeat myself, the German manuscripts and Wolfenbüttel are pretty much considered like the authoritative ones. But, that's pretty about, all I really got, just to give a basic idea. We're covering so many of them just to give people I guess letting them know these things exist. I'm not here to cover them. I'm not here to tell you how to do them. It's just, again, showing you how far back these things have gone, what people were doing, and I will show some pictures of what's in them, too. So here we go. I'm going to move on to the slides now. This is from the book that is supposedly from the 1700s, The Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. And here I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the writing. One of the things I did find interesting, and I did wonder if this has anything to do with the stuff that we just covered in the last episode with the ciphers and stuff. And I circled the page. I noticed, of course, I picked page 93 on the left.
Of course.
But on the right, once it gets into the hundreds, a lot of times that 1 is aligned with a dot. It looks like an I. That's why it's I6. There may be other pages where it looks like a complete 1, but I was like, what's up with the I's and the 1? Like, what's the difference? So I just threw that in there and circled it because I thought that was interesting. Does that have a different meaning? Does that have a different value?
I wonder.
Yeah. Could that be a way of showing you maybe there's something important in that one page? I don't know. But I did catch that. Or it could be nothing.
Well, I mean, considering the amount of ciphers and the amount of stuff that was trying to be hidden. I mean, because I think we talked about this in the last series, that most of this stuff, was written, but it was also kind of encrypted as well.
Yes.
And there was some sort of key somewhere else that you could read it in its entirety or correctly or however. So anybody's guesses could be correct on that.
Yeah. Who knows? Or it could be nothing, like I'm saying.
Or it could be nothing, yeah.
I could easily have done that if I was stoned when I was writing it. And not meant anything about it,
You actually like the way the eye looks with the dot.
Yeah, it looks kind of cool, actually, yeah. Here's another one. I think part of the reasons why I kind of really wanted to really show these is that you will, as you can see, you'll start getting into, which is huge in this book, those magic squares again. Back to the magic squares. And, this is a book from the 1700s, and they're saying it's quite possibly older than that. Yeah. People have been using letters and numerology for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Stop thinking it doesn't mean anything, please.
It's true.
Oh, it just stopped about 100 years ago. Nobody plays with it anymore. Ignorance.
All of antiquity used it, and then we just stopped using it for a second, but it doesn't mean anything.
Then here there's some more. I just wanted to show these all kind of magic squares and other things going on. And the interesting is how some of them, if you see these squares, in my opinion, I'm not sure if you're actually really drawing much on them, because if you look at the letters, it's only giving you so many options. And a lot of them are actually repeating, going to the, going across, going down. These are kind of magic squares that have been made already with the letters in them, and it means something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Here is the one from 1750. A little bit different looking. Got Cabala Mystica there. You do even get some red writing, which I had wondered I could understand maybe putting that in the title to make it pop, but I do wonder the red writing in some of them, could that mean something else, or it's important or whatever, who knows?
Right, to distinguish something.
Yes, and then you have again here on the right, you're starting to see those squares again. And then the sacred, just again, more of the squares again. The Sacred Magic of Abramelin in 1750. And that is all I got for the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. Again, it's a really, in my opinion, the reason why I brought this one up is because this one is extremely well known among occultists and magicians and people in secret societies. It is hugely known. There's other versions of it. I think Crowley kind of has. I could be wrong, and I can't remember if he finished it or not. But I think he had the Pyramidos, which I think was going to be his version
Oh, wow.
of this. I don't think it was as long. In my opinion, even a little bit of his Phoenix stuff is a little bit, in my opinion, would kind of go along with the daily affirmations that you would be doing while you're doing the Abramelin. You know, real quick, if you're going to do the Abramelin, you're going to go on probably water and cracker diet for weeks, if not months prior.
Oh, wow.
The place that you're living in, the windows and the rooms and the doors have to be in a specific way. Oh. And you are not supposed to leave at all. You're not going anywhere until that ritual is done. You are not leaving that house.
Damn.
6 to 18 months. Think about that.
Damn, that's a lot of commitment right there.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
I mean, that's you're talking about mental discipline. That's not just somebody says, I'm going to sit down for 18 months.
And you know what? I'm not trying to sound like another cocky dick again, but you know how many times I've brought this up to conspiracy theorists that think they know everything about cultism? Zero fucking clue about this book.
Wow.
You need to just zip it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm done. So now on to you, Lisa.
Okay. So I chose Sepher Raziel. And this was an interesting one for me because I had heard a lot of lore or legends about it. And so it was interesting to kind of get into it a little bit. So Sepher Raziel is a book, or it's in Hebrew referred to the Book of Raziel the Angel. And it's a grimoire from the Middle Ages written in Hebrew and Aramaic on practical Kabbalah. We talked about Kabbalah in the previous series before this one, and it's written in the whole Solomonic tradition. So just as the case with many other obscure texts, Sepher Raziel has numerous versions published. And interestingly, while it has become well known in the late 1400s, it hasn't been shown to be older than the 13th century or proven to be older than the 13th century. But then you have parts of the text within the Sepher Raziel that date back to antiquity. And then the title of Sepher Raziel is mentioned in the Sword of Moses, which is an apocryphal book on magic written in Hebrew in the 11th century. So if it was written in the 11th century and it has this name in there, one would assume that Sepher Raziel is probably older than 13th century. Trithemius mentioned that Sepher Raziel was one of his sources for his... Yeah, and I'm going to get this wrong. This is the episode where I butcher all of the words that are hard.
You know what I want to do? I want to go and message every single podcaster I know that runs their mouth on the wildest shit about occultism and ask them, do you even know who Johannes Trithemius is? Nope.
I've never heard of him until you mentioned him.
It would be. Yeah. It's going to be like Sesame Street. Nope. None of them know.
Right.
But they're authorities.
Yeah. So Trithemius mentioned Sepher Raziel as one of his sources for writing Steganographia. Is that how you say it? Steganographia?
Yeah, I think so. That's close enough.
And Agrippa also mentioned it as being a source or inspiration in his book on occult philosophy. So, I mean, those are two, I believe, pretty notorious books to have Sepher Raziel as, an inspiration or source. So a somewhat infamous Hebrew legend goes as such. Sepher Raziel, the book, was given to Adam in the Garden of Eden by God via the angel Raziel. The myth goes that this was the first book ever written and of direct divine providence, containing angel hierarchy, astrology, Kabbalah and Gematria, and of which possibly served as the original and primary source for much magic and Kabbalistic literature. Within the Jewish mysticism tradition of Kabbalah, a minor tradition exists called practical Kabbalah, or white magic, and it focuses on magic itself. And this part of the tradition, it involves incantations of angelic or holy divine names, the use of amulets, various forms of divination, as well as the use of the Sepher Raziel book itself. So it's, part of the actual tradition itself. It is said that this book contains all the knowledge of the universe known at the time, astrology of the planets in our solar system, creative life energy of Earth, birth, death, and reincarnation of the soul. While traditional Kabbalah is about trying to understand the nature of God and our existence, Practical Kabbalah involves creating life through magical means by summoning or communicating with God and angels. So there's a bit of a contradiction here because, like in Jewish texts, it talks about no magic, nobody's supposed to, utilize it or practice it or anything like that. And they condemn the practice. I think we talked about that briefly in the previous series. But practical Kabbalah is regarded as pure and holy, but it's only reserved for Jewish elite. So only a higher ranking, practicing Jewish
besides
people.
Besides the fact that like they seem to think that they own whatever. I'm not even going to get into that. It's just besides starting to say that only Jews should be practicing it, and like when you start getting into like different types of Kabbalah and then saying like, oh, you shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. I often wonder, is it because like they're talking about Kabbalah being used in the left-hand path instead of Kabbalah being used to actually have an experience with God? Like I sometimes wonder maybe back then, like practical can, instead of saying regular Kabbalah, like was there different phrases that were used because of how it was being understood?
Yeah.
Or how it was being.
Know the difference.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Just a theory or an idea.
No, absolutely. But I think also in some of the literature that I was reading, they, I think it's that you had to be like learned or whatever. And I wonder if it's just the segregation of like, remember how like in the Bible, it was written in Latin and they didn't want anybody to learn Latin. They didn't want to translate it to any of the common languages because they only wanted to be the ones to bestow the actual text to the people. So I don't know if that was the case or, but on some of these other sources, it says that the Sepher Raziel was translated from Greek into Hebrew or Aramaic. So I don't know. I mean, remember last series, it was like, oh no, Gematria or Kabbalah started in Greek, or no, it started in Hebrew. And so you have this back and forth discrepancy because they both kind of came from the Phoenicians. So, yeah. But so Raziel in Hebrew means secrets of God and often referred to as the angel of mysteries or keeper of secrets. And in Jewish mysticism is regarded as an archangel. He appears as a cherub attending God, one of the Ophanim, wheel, which is a wheel seen in Ezekiel's vision.
That's what I call my drone, my baby Ophanim. The eyes in the sky.
That's awesome.
I actually had bought an Ophanim sticker off of Etsy, and I never.
You're gonna put it on there?
Well, if I would have received it 3 months ago when I ordered it. I think honestly, I think it's my fault. I think I sent it to my old address. So some dude probably opened up this letter and like, what the fuck is this?
What is this? Can you imagine if that drone lands somewhere and it has the orphan pictures all over it? And
the funny thing is that I actually had to order it from like a religious,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And the thing is
ironic.
actually like, this funny thing is like, even the way they depicted it, in my opinion, isn't the friendliest thing to want to look at. And it still even came from like a Catholic.
Wow. That's cool. With the eyes kind of circling around and everything.
Yo, if that shit poked its head out of the clouds, people would lose their mind.
Nobody would think that that's like angelic at all. It kind of reminds me of that device in Contact, Jodie Foster, or whatever. But yeah.
I mean, how how often Christians and Catholics actually get confused anyway. So.
Everyone's always confused. Well, they take it as their own interpretation.
Yeah.
So he's described as an angel with blue wings, gray flowing robe, and a glowing yellow halo, which is a personification of wisdom. It's believed to have been sent by God to the world so that mankind may learn how to once again come home. Raziel is said to stand on Mount Horeb, every day and proclaim the secrets to humankind. Now, there were different texts that said that Sepher Raziel was made up of 5 books. You have other ones that say it's made up of 7 books. And some of the chapters of these books are pretty extensive in that they go into like astrology and its use in magic, precise interactions with the planets, signs, and houses. They outline magical virtues of stones, animals, and herbs, determine like perfumes to use, and how to use them, detailing correct hours of the day for each of the operation or ritual. Different heavens and hierarchy. I think this was one of the main thing, is that the different hierarchies of the heavens and then the different hierarchies of angels and angelology. It is said that it goes into extensive detail of the holy names of God, divisions of heaven and hell, names and hierarchy of the angels and company, as well as symbolic meanings behind the book of Genesis and the Sepher Yetzirah. The book claims to refer to an interaction between Adam and Angel Raziel shortly after the fall. Cast out, Adam prays to God and apologizes for his betrayal. God is moved by Adam's prayer and sends his most trusted angel, Raziel, to Adam to help him on earth, basically improve like his living conditions. I'm assuming like how to do stuff and find his way back home. He gave him the information on how to speak and that the power thoughts can have on both one's spirit and the physical world. Describes the laws of nature and planets as well as life on earth and among the stars. It goes into like that it taught him about the human soul and that it's confined to flesh, and it's basically how you can experience the spiritual and temporal realms at the same time while living on earth, or at least it describes it that. It talks about the Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters, and how you can use them, which I think it's like gematria, really, describing that they're powers of the letters themselves, and that how all creation energy begins with a thought inspired by the divine, and these thoughts move from the spiritual realm to the physical realm, finding manifestation in speech and actions, going back to incantations or rituals or gematria, or basically the power of the word, power of the thought, and then manifested in the word, and then in the physical realm.
You know something real quick I just want to mention, and it's because you have a bunch of them up on the screen. You know, and I think that is great. And it's something that we'll be showing more going along and probably in the future. And I've shown it plenty of times. You see these hexagrams, correct? Mm. You see how old these books are. Mm-hmm. 14, 15, 1600s. Some of them saying they may have came from the 1300s. And it wasn't until 1897 that star ended up on Israel's flag.
Mm. That's right.
What the fuck is up with that?
Yeah.
The LVX ritual, the LVX formula, that is for the lesser and greater hexagram ritual. You are using a swastika and then drawing hexagrams. So you have both in that ritual.
Right.
People need to think about that and wonder what the hell is really going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the swastika, you see it in antiquity in India and over in Asia, Southern Asia, don't you? So it's these symbols are so old, and they're just adopted and then turned into whatever they want. So let me see. One more slide. Sorry.
That's all right.
So another myth associated with this book, in that the angels basically found out that God had given the book to Angel Raziel, and Angel Raziel was going to give this book to Adam or humans. And it pretty much made them mad or pissed them off, in so much that it was because they didn't believe that humans deserved another chance. They had done so little to be deserving of redemption in of itself. So they all conspired to steal the text from Angel Raziel, and then they dumped it in the ocean. So as a way to intercede between God, giving humans a second chance. However, God retrieved the book and had it safeguarded by the lineage of Adam, with Raziel bestowing wisdom on Noah to build his ark. And I think that's given another separate name from the Sepher Raziel. I think it's attached to something, Hazarazim or something like that. It is further believed that this book went missing after the reign of Solomon, and this you'll find interesting, but later recovered by medieval German mystics. There you go.
That is another thing that I think it's a commonality. If you've noticed from the last episode and a few other things that we will be doing going forward, there was a lot of going back to Germany.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes. Well, don't you remember there was a theory that Hitler had sent out teams of not reconnaissance, but teams in search of holy relics. Like he was looking for the spear that pierced Jesus. He was looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and then rattling them off. But he was very interested in holy relics, and he was, I think it was at the time when he had the whole German mystic thing going on. if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat.
Oh, they will.
For sure. Keep me honest.
Well, I mean, it's good, though.
No, it's good. So lore indicates that Sepher Raziel was the first book ever written, and it was made of sapphire, which is angel's tears, which is different, right? Because wasn't the emerald tablet of, like, Hermes or...
Angel's tear. I wonder if that's why Crowley chose Star Sapphire.
Oh.
As one of his rituals.
And it was given by God and trusted to Angel Raziel to give to Adam, basically. And then all of his descendants were the ones that used it. So, yeah, that's it.
All right. Very nice.
Raziel.
The next one that I have is going to be so short. At least it should have just probably have kept on going. But the only reason I really brought this one up is because it was Icelandic. And I was like, oh, I haven't come across one of those. So we got the Cauldra book of magic. And this is what the front and back of it look like. It is an Icelandic grimoire. It is a small manuscript containing a collection of 47 spells and sigils or staves that they sometimes call them, Staves. The grimoire was compiled by 4 people, possibly starting in the late 16th century and going on until the mid-17th century. The first 3 scribes were Icelanders, and the 4th was a Dane working from Icelandic material. The manuscript, and this is another one I thought was interesting, is written on animal skin, containing sigils, prayers, charms, and spells. So I guess, like, besides the fact that it was Icelandic, and I haven't heard of too many Icelandic grimoires, writing it on the animal skin, I thought maybe kind of like made it separate from others.
For sure.
Yeah. The various spells consist of Latin and runic material, as well as Icelandic magical staves, again, or sigils, invocations to Christian entities. That is another thing that people will maybe come to notice through their own research or listening to other things that we will copy in the future. When it comes to ceremonial magic, there was a ton of Christian and Catholicism in it. There were people that prescribed to that stuff, and they were occultists. So it's just very interesting if you start looking at it. So yeah, I had Christian entities, demons, and the Norse gods, as well as instructions for the use of herbs and magical items. Some of the spells are protective, intended against such problems as trouble with childbearing, headache, and insomnia. Previous incantations, older ones that came across, pestilence, suffering, and distress at sea. So, there was a load of different things that were in. Others are intended to cause fear, kill animals, find thieves, put someone to sleep, cause flatulence.
Oh.
Nowadays, you just tell someone to go to Taco Bell and they're good to go. Or bewitch women. Like, it's funny. I guess, like, if somebody was in, like, a very important position and, like, was doing something I don't know if they had board meetings back then. If they had board meetings, to troll them with, like, gas problems would be funny. I guess I could see.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't like them.
Yeah. I mean, I would do that to people now that I do like, just for laughs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It is known to.
If they talk too much, you started to give them something.
Oh yeah, like if I was
cut
like
the speech in half.
Yeah, like one of the meetings in the morning that at my job, when every once in a while they have these meetings that they want to basically like MK Ultra you into like fucking your customers and making them money. I would just love to like give one of the guys up there with their speech like flatulence problems then, just to get us the fuck out of there.
That's hilarious.
'Cause it's like this, I can't deal with this anymore. This is like propaganda and MK Ultra for 30 minutes straight. Yeah. Real quick. If there's anybody out there who deals with the company Cintas and you use them, you have a company or whatever, check your fucking invoice every week. Just letting you know. Make sure there's nothing on there you didn't fucking actually get. It is known to have once been owned by Icelandic Bishop Haynes Finson, who was alive from 1739 until 1796, and known for having a vast library containing many volumes of magic-related texts and manuscripts. So, that was all I really had on that one. Again, it's old, it's Icelandic, and it's on animal skin. So I was like, I'm going to mention this one. And this is just some of the pictures here that I took from it that you can find online, the book. Some of the diagrams that they got here, what the writing looked like. You can even check, the way it was binded.
Can you imagine if you made a mistake? Like, did you have to crumple it up and throw it away and get a new animal skin because you misspelled a word?
You're all right.
They didn't have, autocorrect or whiteout. Back in the day, whiteout.
Imagine that you want to finish a book and, you're just, trying to catch and kill a squirrel real quick.
Sorry.
God damn. It's like,
yeah.
That piece of
Sorry.
tree. That piece of tree is too easy. So, here's some of the pictures up there. I thought this was interesting, some of these old diagrams that they have. If I was Gangster, I could come out and probably start spitting what these things are. But in my opinion, I have seen a lot of them in different variations on different things. I think if people take the time to look at the screen right now, you'll probably see, in my opinion, I've seen a lot of this stuff that's, a lot of these symbols almost kind of changed and incorporated into a lot of folk magic. Mm-hmm. And for some people, to me, folk magic is a little bit more of magical beliefs of that specific area. You know what I'm saying? So
Interesting.
Here we go again. And the reason why I wanted to include this is very, very much, these crosses up here that you see at the top is very close to the way that Crowley used to sign. He used to have a symbol or a way he'd sign something. When the OTO kicked me out and sent me a letter to my house, which I threw out pretty quickly, a version of that sigil was actually pencil written on the bottom of it when this cuck signed that piece of paper kicking me out. It's you have to wonder, was that put there on purpose? Were you hoping some psychic attack? It's I threw that shit out, dickhead. I don't know.
Mail it back to sender.
Yeah, return to sender. Yeah, and it's so funny. I guess I shouldn't talk, but they even misspelt words in the letter.
That's sad.
It's yo, you even had time.
How do you
You
take
had
it
time.
seriously?
You had time before you mailed this out.
Yeah. They were so mad. They just.
And then now going back, I'm was that part of the cipher?
Oh, it was purposefully misspelled.
Yeah, no, I'm just, whatever.
That's
all right, yeah, so some of these things I just wanted to show. I do think a lot of these symbols that I'm showing up on the screen, again, I have seen before in other ways. I just can't remember it offhand. Very close to a lot of things you'll see, in my opinion, you've seen drawn in caves in other countries and shit.
Yeah. That one at the one on the left or whatever, I think I've seen that in a Catholic something, a little figurine of some sort.
See, Slick Dissident is even saying in the chat that there's one of them in there that I actually do think has something to do with showing electricity. He's mentioning it now, that the squatter man. Yeah, he's seen it before. I think he knows what I'm getting at. All right, on to the next one. Just interesting stuff I just wanted to show.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and a lot of these, I'm saying again, I really do feel we're seeing other symbols that have been maybe taken off of this, maybe influenced by it, or maybe this is just going into the story a little bit deeper than the other symbols.
Well, even that top one looks like the whole cardinal thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the one on the right, I know I've seen somewhat recently in a different version.
Mm-hmm. Taken apart and then given something else. Meaning something else.
And that is that.
It's pretty interesting. I like that. I like that it's obscure like that. So, this next one, Atrosiphon. That's probably not how you say it, but and with these grimoires, so I looked up a majority of them on how to say them, the pronunciations. they're so obscure they don't even exist. I mean, in terms of an actual pronunciation, like whatever. So I even looked at videos to see how they would pronounce them in videos. There's not even videos talking about it. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But so forgive me for mispronouncing it. So this grimoire was a Greco-Egyptian manuscript that was used by Greek healers and practitioners of medicine and possibly put together sometime between the 16th or 18th century and potentially in Crete. The text contains 70 sections and is written in at least 5 different hands, or like 5 different authors. Speaking of the book itself, it is foliated in parts, which means that it has like either pictures or pressed plants or flowers in it, which reminded me of the Voynich, right? We have all these drawings on it. And however, there's several volumes of them that there are pages missing, or they're unnumbered, or it's just sections that are just not there. That you see where one page number ends, and then the next one, it just was like, what happened to the middle part, because the numbering took over at another point. So it's they kind of talk about how there's missing pieces in it, but I thought it was pretty interesting that it's also foliated. Regarded as a genre of Greek literature on medical wisdom, it is possibly it originates in Byzantium time period, and it comes from ancient
Byzantine,
Greek.
I think. I don't know.
Byzantine.
I'm the last person to correct you, but sorry.
Again, this is where I murder all of the words.
Well, you're in the right place for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The name comes from ancient Greek, meaning a professor or learned person or doctor of medicine. So the grimoire contains, it's a medical treatise, and it contains information on botanical remedies, pharmacology, popular cures, astrological medicine with charts, a list of good and bad days for phlebotomy, which is interesting. They were doing phlebotomy even back then. I think it was bloodletting. I don't know if that's what they mean. Magical script, Kabbalistic symbols, zodiac signs, pseudo-Solomonic pentacles, invocations of angels and demons, amulet texts, spells, and prognostications. And it also contains the Greek version of the Key of Solomon. So it's pretty extensive work in this one. Books such as the Itrosophia serve as a window into what the Greeks knew about anatomy and their medical knowledge under the Ottoman Empire, which was between 1400 to 1800, as they focus on empirical diagnostics and therapeutics, none of which were theoretical. I thought that was interesting because they were only going to include stuff that they had proven. And so empirical means that they have compared it to something else and can say this actually is something because we tested it against something else, and therefore it shows that it is something, instead of a theory. Oh, we think it's this, or we think it might be due to this. They actually proved this stuff, and then it was included in this grimoire. An iatrosophon was a physician's notebook of recipes and treatments and or a collective of classical medical and pharmacological texts consulted in hospital settings. Some of Itrosophia, which Itrosophia is plural and Itrosophon's the singular pronunciation of the name, included medical cures and drugs, but spells, exorcism, magic, astrology, and practical advice was all included as well. In conjunction with interpreting dream symbols, this grimoire was used to advise on a prophylactic, usually dietary cure, or treatment of restoring and maintaining health along with religious prayers. It's important to kind of note that medical dreams, and I don't know what that means, I will be honest, medical dreams themselves, I don't know if the actual practitioner was having medical dreams or the patient was having medical dreams. But they were not given to dream interpreters. They were basically the domain of like physicians at the level of Hippocrates, Galen, and Rufus, or any follower of the healing god of Asclepius. So they consider the whole dream interpretation to be a big deal in terms of consulting this book and then trying to restore.
Oh, I can tell you right now, any magical order, coven, anything that's associated with practicing witchcraft and magic, they are going to tell you to write down a journal of your dreams.
I've heard that.
Or yeah, that's like basic shit that I really never did.
Okay,
that's the one thing I did lacking. I never kept the journal shit really. You know, there was sometimes I would write down like the rituals I did and like the formula of like how I did that. Like, you know, did I meditate first, or you know, did I call upon, you know, God for, you know, what was the layer cake of my ritual, you know, and like, you know, did I get any different results or feelings than if I did it this way the next week on the same day? You know?
That's interesting. That is very interesting, considering that it was included as a big section of the book.
Oh, and real quick, I do want to, I'm just going to bring your picture right back.
Okay.
I don't think you mentioned it. I just want to let people know that this picture on the right, I can tell just because I've seen it so many times in other books, and I used it myself constantly when I was doing ritual magic. That is your planetary hours and for the week. If it's Wednesday, when the sun rises, the first hour of the day will be associated with Mercury because Mercury is Wednesday. And then every other hour after that, sometimes a little bit longer, just like the zodiacs. Sometimes it's a little bit longer or a little bit shorter because not every zodiac is the same size. So, you know, with planets and stuff, not every hour is exactly the same time, but it will, like that, I think if I remember correctly, let's say Wednesday, Mercury is going to hit like 3 times. Okay. Sunrise, some part later on during the day, and then like at night. But it just keeps on revolving through like the same order, you know? Wow. And yeah, so like if you are doing something, again for Mercury, it would be suggested to do it on a Wednesday on one of the hours of Mercury. You know, or if, like, let's say I was going to make a sigil or design something for my ritual on Wednesday, I could get up early enough and design whatever I wanted to design at the hour of Mercury in the morning, and then come the hour of Mercury during the day, now I can actually do my whole skit.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the fact that this was included in a medical text, I mean, it was so holistic. Like, it covered all the bases.
That's why, I thought it was interesting that you were even saying that, I mean, you know, medical, and then they're showing you the planetary hours. Which has to do with when you're making, that's another thing. Tinctures and elixirs.
Yeah.
Sigils. All that stuff, if it's being done by somebody who even has half of an idea of just like a list of recipes, or not, I even say recipes, you know, just how it's been done. Yeah, if they have half of an idea of that, they're going to make that stuff on the day and hour of whatever it's supposed to be used for. Tinctures.
And that's what it says. That's what it says.
And these things will need to be put out in the moonlight. Depending on what you're looking for, it'll be put in a window because of collecting certain light from different energies. So, I mean, that's exactly why all that stuff is in there. Is because of all those things that are done, that it's attributed to planetary hours and days.
But the fact that they knew this stuff back then, you know, you could just open a book and it was there. I don't know. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
I
really wanted to bring that up.
That was extremely important what you just said, because I mean, I look at these books and I'm barely learning them, so it's all Greek to me. So. It's written in Greek.
Yeah.
That was the pun.
I was gonna say some of this stuff is written in Greek, so it is.
This one actually is written in Greek, so that's why I said it.
Nice.
It seems that the interest in anatomy in Greece appears in text only after the Neo-Hellenic Enlightenment, which was in 1705 to 1821. And while anatomy had been discussed by various authors in various contexts, it wasn't until the 18th century that the Greek scholars came to an actual consensus on the importance of anatomy, and then hence its translation of anatomical knowledge into the language and literature. And that's when you start to see it appear in some of these texts or these literature. Because of this grimoire, we see that medicine was practiced by both university-trained physicians and pharmacists and empirical healers during this time. So knowledge had been collected in manuscripts from both camps, which I thought was very, very forward-thinking or advanced, in that you had the medicine and the empirical data that's practiced by university-trained physicians or medical professionals, and then you had the folk medicine and their information and data, and then you included it together. I thought that's so wholesome. I mean, and then you know what you said about the planetary and the times and all that other stuff. You talk about all encompassing book. So the word Itrosophia is first encountered as the name of the books during the Byzantine era. So that's kind of when this started to come about. So that's around that time. I included these images because of all the spheres, and I think we talked about like the sphere of life and death, and then we talked about some other spheres in ciphers. So I went ahead and I included them. Again, they're in Greek, so if they look familiar to you, please, by all means. But the medical manuscripts of Itrosophia are divided basically between known authors and unknown authors. And then from the known authors, they're further divided by either the authors that went and were erudites or university trained, and then just folk authors. So they kind of just categorize them of who's what and how. Because it was a source of medical knowledge for a wide range of practitioners, many of whom did not have formal education, they contain an elaborate body of information on several aspects of diagnostics, therapeutics, such as botany and folk medicine. And that was a huge one, the botany thing. All of these physicians are so well versed in botanical science. Historical texts describing medicinal plants and minerals have the same common problem. And I think I told you about a lecture that I was listening to, that when some of these scientists of today are looking back at some of these historical texts, they don't really know what these historical texts are talking about, because the nomenclature, like the Latin name of the nomenclature, that wasn't established until the 1800s with Carl Linnaeus. So looking back at historical texts like 1100, 1200, or anything like that, no one had a common name. And the name that was used was the common name used in that region of that area. And so if that language is lost, or if that language is no longer spoken, who knows what, plant they were talking about. So sometimes the only info on the plant are the plant's names reported that was common at that time. And depending on the region or the cultural time period, I mean, it was only known to them. So it's interesting. I mean, if they drew it out, maybe at that point it would be somewhat known, but I think you lose a little bit of actual knowledge. And then it could be that plant went extinct. So there's all that as well. So.
Again, and this is just my opinion, which I probably be a year from now with all the other things that I've had thought of. Or maybe it could even be something that we do sooner than later, because it's kind of going along with the theme. But the Voynich manuscript, I really do think it's quite possible that, some of those things that we think are plants or whatever, we're being shown nerves and things inside of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because like in this actual slide with the image on the right-hand side, you see a dragon or whatever, and it's interlaced. To me, that looks like DNA. That's what that looks like to me, a double helix. Mm. And surely they didn't know the DNA was a double helix at that point. But it's included in a medical grimoire.
That's actually, not to jinx myself, but like within the next few months, I'm hoping to go to a couple of different universities not too far from me, and I'm going to be able to actually sit down and look at books from like the 1700s, so like books like this, that they will actually allow you to go and look at if you just go and ask. Right. Most people just assume I got to be part of a club. It's like, no, you just have to know how to use a computer and make an appointment. And you can go and look at these things, and I am going to start trying to research them and try to find stuff that I think might possibly be referring to eyeball drawings in there, amongst other things. And I will be documenting this, places that will allow me to bring recording equipment, or if I have to put on, as cheesy as it sounds, fucking spyglasses for $80, I'm going to record what the fuck that book looks like. And I am going to present it on YouTube, and I'll be showing occult books, and I'm going to be kind of trying to make a point with it eventually.
You'll be like a legit researcher.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think I'll be able to show just, commonalities between places that there shouldn't have been, like, in ways to show, I think, eye symbolism and somehow a universal consciousness. That's kind of, and possibly ciphers is my intention of when I'm going to look at these things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right.
Absolutely.
On to you. I'll show
I'm done. I'm done with mine.
Oh, you're done? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that's, again, I just really do wonder, how much of these drawings that people are trying to debate over, like what herb or flower, you're literally debating over something that's not even, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was things in the Voynich manuscript that I think when we get to it, I could easily show. That was actually stuff even in the eyeball series, That's just my opinion.
No, I think you're right. I think if the camps were talking to each other, like the ophthalmologists with the occultists, so much advancement could be made.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's what I was even saying, like that time when, it was something that we were reading, and I think, this was on Clown World. And there was something where somebody had written 2 different books about Nikola Tesla's stuff that was taken or whatever. And it was FBI documents or CIA documents that were dropped. And like the CIA admits inside of it that one book is better than the other because the other author had no idea of occultism.
Wow. So why not?
So it's like you could have
occultism?
all these, like imagine a
occultist.
doctor that understands occultism, what they could really be understanding and looking at.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Lack one that doesn't understand that shit at all. I think a doctor into occultism would actually be far more advanced with their theories and thinking than the one that isn't. That's just my opinion.
Why all these people were advanced. Because back then you had people that understood botany, they understood occultism, they understood physiology. They were making so many advances.
Occultism and hidden science, I think, was just along with everything as a way of trying to figure it out.
Agreed.
And then that got taken away somehow, and people just got lost. Something happened. There was something where they'd cut that shit out.
I think so too.
Yes, I think you're right there, JT.
Yeah, it was his uncle.
Yes.
Who worked for MIT. Yeah.
It was his uncle who also had like some alien recovery. Sorry, but that whole thing is shady as shit, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, on to this, because I'm not even getting into Trump. Summa, Sacre, Magic is the next book that I'm going into. I found this one interesting, and I think it looks kind of cool, too. Mm-hmm. Summa, and I'm just going to call this SSM, just to make it easy. And it's supposed to be from... the SSM was compiled and redacted in 1346 by the Catalan magician Ganel. I'm just going to read his last name. SSM, or Compendium of Sacred Magic, is a book of magic with over 200,000 words and one of the most thorough overviews of Latin medieval magic transmitted to our day. According to Jan R. Veenstra, the work contains 5 books, each comprised of 2 or 3 tracts, and each tract containing anywhere from 3 to 13 chapters, making it a total of 85 chapters. The volume accounts for magic as it was practiced in Spain and possibly southern France during the 13th century. Examples of these chapters are as follows, and one of these me and Megan from 7 Degrees are going to be covering eventually.
Oh, nice.
De Annualis Salomonis, De Shemhemphoris, De Almendel, which is another grimoire that I'm going to be covering with Megan, the Almendel, or Almadel, a couple of different ways of saying it. De Raziel, Liber Trium Animarum, and those, and the New English translation of that by Joseph Peterson. And that is also called the Book of Three Souls. Although Ganel copied sections directly from texts he consulted, the SSM reads actually very well, considering. Unlike a lot of most magic manuscripts that have been compiled from like multiple things, and it's like almost like kind of just like tossed in there. This, I think, is kind of almost written in like a very cohesive way for you to like understand it better. That's what they say. It also Ginell specifies the Amidel as a universal technology for the consecration of ritual apparatus. In the like manner, the 51 prayers that constitute Liber Trivium and Armarum are employed throughout the manuscript. It's even like another thing. You know how often psalms are used?
Yes.
Constantly.
Yes, they constantly. They're in everything.
So it's like either there's two options or both. There's something there.
Yes.
Right. Or it's a cipher.
Correct. No, 100%. Yeah.
You know, and then again, it's always gonna be like, oh, but they're preferred in the Bible. Or maybe you just don't understand the Bible.
The Bible's a grimoire.
Yeah. And the like, let me get back to it. Ginell's version of the sworn book of Honorius is spread throughout the volume as well. The core texts of the first part of the London Honorius are found in the Capitulum de Sanctione Honori and Capitulum de Sigillo Dei. However, sections can also be found in Sanctorium Angelorium in Circolo and in the Capitulum de Novum Modus. I'm not even going to keep reading these names. This is just ridiculous. Which contains sections on the planetary and aerial spirits. Basically, even parts of this book is in a bunch of other books as well. And that is something, in my opinion, people will maybe notice if you do ever start going down like the rabbit holes or start looking into grimoires and manuscripts. You will get a lot of people that I guess came across this work and thought it was actually worth putting back out and included it within their own stuff. You know, it's like referencing to other magicians or other stuff that they think is worth practicing. So sometimes you'll get a lot of books with like almost the same stuff in it, but with just like a little bit of a different flair or a few other different things added. There are only 2 manuscripts of Summa of the SSM. The original Latin text. The second copy of the text is complete translation in German. What? Very little is known to date about Berengario Ginell. He was a Catalonian. He lived in the early 14th century and was known in the circles of Juan III de Mallorca. While writing the SSM, he stayed in the border region between Spain and France and Perpignan, or whatever. As mentioned above, the goal of his colossal work was to give a complete overview of the old and new magic of his times. The texts he worked from were mostly astrological and magical grimoires of Hebrew and Arabic origins, which circulated in Spain around the 13th century. Ginell paid special attention to the Solomonic texts of the Magica Liber Vitae and the Magica of Taz, and the Magica of Taz the Greek, or it could be Taz Grecos, as well to the Liber Razielis and the Liber Eruatus. Screwing these up. Ginell provided detailed information on aspects of the practical Kabbalah, particularly of the creation of magical names. The 2 central components of the SSM are the ritual instructions and descriptions as given according to Ginell's source text. And another integral part of this is like the bold approach to creating a single anthology of grimoires. We finally find long and elaborate lists of angel and demonic names, and including their offices and functions. So this guy really wanted to, I guess, kind of make this like the book of all books, maybe.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
Yeah. While much of Ginell's work aimed at bringing together the magical knowledge of his times and combining the major ritual texts and instructions in one volume. It goes significantly beyond that. The SSM is more than just a long list of magical source texts bound together in a single tome. Gannell set out to create a coherent system of magic, a synthesis of the magical knowledge and practice he had already found scattered at this time. So again, basically kind of what I was just saying. And then we'll go through some of the pictures I thought were pretty cool. And again, this supposedly, 1346. That's old.
Yeah.
1346. These this stuff might go back a little bit farther than some people know. Got this. I thought this diagram on the side is pretty interesting. Now here we have the pentagram here. These are like other seals that, like, even this stuff on the right, to me, starts to get very goetic looking. I can't remember the style of magic, but there was like a style of magic where you do start getting into a lot of like Catholicism, and sigils are very much looking like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, some more pictures. They do use, blue and red in there. I don't know if that's, for specifics or not. This I thought was interesting. That's very much Crowley-like for his Astrum Argentum.
That's interesting.
I mean, and this is back at 1346.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there is claims he did not start the AA. There's claims that existed. That has been one that has existed for a long, long time. And again, if in the Astrum Argentum, there is times where there's hoods on and you actually don't know who the hell you're around.
Wow.
So it is very much a secret society.
Yeah.
An interesting slide 33 as well. And then here, look, I mean, I would even start considering this thing on the right. 1346, people are understanding that there's numbers and letters and something behind that. They're understanding that then. But somehow now, in the times and days that we're in now, you're considered schizophrenic or a fucking idiot if you look at this stuff. Humanity is being dumbed down because of people who don't understand shit and become authoritative on shit. This shit goes back a long time, and it has not stopped.
The image on the right reminds me of the previous series where we looked at Crowley's handwritten thing, and it was all slanted and it had a line across it. That looks a lot like that in terms of like a cipher of some sort. But
yeah. So yeah, exactly. The things that we even showed in the last series. That could have been like a cipher right there.
Yeah.
Oh, now on to you.
So I picked Thesaurus Exorcismorum Antique Conjurationum Terribilium. Again, massacre of these words. So I'm just going to refer to it as the Thesaurus. This one was a very interesting one because it basically is the manual or handbook for exorcism, but it's classified as a grimoire. I'll tell you why here in a second. So we see that grimoires are popular sources of literature and magic, but it was exorcism manuals that were the most influential in occult products. It is because the exorcism rites described in these books were indistinguishable from conjuration written in grimoires. Hence, their use as grimoires to conjure up demons instead of banishing them. Reasons for conjuring up a demon range anywhere from treasure hunting to gambling to impotency. And gambling was, I was like, what were they gambling, right? Apparently horse races. Horse races was a big thing in terms of gambling and like into antiquity, which is interesting why we still race horses today. So it's kind of something. Because of this, many manuals on exorcism were added to the papal index in 1709. So this book itself is divided into 4 parts for each author, and these 2 slides are the title page of the actual thesaurus itself, Exorcismorum. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and see, like, even look at that. Like, if people have a chance to look at the screen, that's a V, even though it's being pronounced a C.
Yeah.
Again, even just because of the way typewriters were in the back. You know, and I assume they were like that for a reason that we may not know.
I think so.
But I need, you know, again, going back to just letters and being different for different reasons.
And the previous series, we mentioned how V was given because of Hermes viewed cranes flying in a V formation, and how they were picking what looked like something was pronounced as that letter. So that could also be a reason why they chose an angular U instead of a V, or a V itself. So there's all that to rummage through. The Thesaurus is the most complete collection of manuals of Roman Catholic exorcists ever compiled in 1,300 pages. They didn't want to stop at 12. It contains literature from some of the most important and significant exorcists of all time. And although this book, or grimoire, is considered by many scholars to be the most influential and remarkable collection of exorcism treatises ever published, it is considered ultra rare and sporadically ever seen on the market. In fact, I was trying to do some digging to see if that was true. I found one that was from a private collection of an author, a painter in England, and it went up for auction in Sotheby's. And I think there was another site for like a rare book site or whatever, and had a list price of like $1,600 to $2,200. These books are worth a lot of money. So this one right here is the Practica Exorcistarum, and it was written by the Paduan Valero Polidoro, which he wrote the first and second works of this book. And it begins with a theoretical section on the names of the devil, behavior of the exorcist, nature of the demons, practical arguments on the phases of exorcisms, confession, exorcist clothing, what to wear, what to say, how to bless, and if you want to deliver the demon out of the house, how to do it, how to acquire the name of a demon and write its name on paper above the image. I don't know what image, but a image, and then set it on fire.
Yeah, well, this is like this is very, very much even stuff that you'd be getting into with the Abramelin. Mm-hmm. And very much like I can't read, like Solomonic magic. Actually, that's when I'm talking about a lot of magic that has Catholicism in it. It's Solomonic magic for sure. Yeah. That stuff you will like those sigils, like sigils out of the Goetia. Like you'll be using those, but it's like there is so much going on. You're going to actually wear something on your specific clothing, plus other specific stuff. That's going to actually, if you're pulling this thing into the triangle and not into your circle, because you're evoking and not invoking it, you're going to even wear something that supposedly is like rendering it harmless, like it can't even do anything to you because you have this symbol. Like these things, like
that's what they said.
It's very much the same thing.
Yeah, it went into extensive detail in terms of the clothing that you have to wear, which I guess you know what I mean. Like it's that important to include it in the text. So yeah, so this one is the first work by Polidoro, and that's the Practica. And then he also wrote the Dispersio Demonium. And so those are the two volumes that he wrote. And so just to kind of give a little bit of background, the political instability along with the religious and moral crisis of what was happening in Europe at the time was largely blamed on the devil's influence. So they were having their own satanic panic around the 1500s. Because of this, the art of exorcism flourished in the late 1500s and into the mid to late 1600s. Extensive research into the names, physical aspects, forms taken, and activities of demons was done by many demonologists and then compiled into treatises and/or manuals on exorcisms for the purpose of stamping out the satanic presence in society. So in trying to understand how to identify and respond to the physical, sensory, and paranormal manifestations, we see the borders of this exorcist doctrine and the occult and mystical techniques completely blurred. They're one and the same. So the investigations into like therapeutics or anti-demonic methods basically led them to research everything and just obscure sources, weird and strange sources. I mean, it included everything in terms of how-tos and whatnot. Because of this publication, it set off like a chain of events. It, of course, immediately was received, not well by the Catholic Church. It was judged as a rivalry to the teachings of the church at that time. And it said that it was because it lacked trust in the techniques that was being used. So censure and prohibition came about following the publication of Rituale Romanum in 1614. It contains precise instructions that sharply contradict the practices outlined in these manuals. And I think when you see stuff like that's prohibition or like that's, kind of protested against, you kind of get a view or a window into what was happening at that time. Like, more so than when you see text, oh, this was happening, this is all we knew or whatever. I think you get a better understanding from the texts that were, how do you say, censored or whatever. Kind of like today, you see what's being censored and why is it being censored? Because you're giving more of a clue into what's really going on behind the scenes.
Sometimes I think it was just actually explained easily.
I think so too.
And then that's the problem.
I think
is
so
that
too.
It was like so dumbed down but accurate, that it was easier for people to understand, and they didn't want that.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to insert themselves as the middleman, the way we talked about in the last series.
Yeah.
So not long after the first printing, which it was in 1608, the Catholic Church republished it, and after standardizing the rite of exorcism in 1614. So just to reiterate, it was not only used in exorcisms, but it was regarded as one of the primary source books for demonology because of the amount of information that it had on all of that research that was done. So the two next works were done by Mengi. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but he wrote Flagellum Demonium and Fustus Demonium, and they were the third and fourth works written by the Italian Franciscan priest, and he is probably one of the most recognized exorcists of all time. He's also known as like the father of exorcism. Mengi carried out numerous exorcisms throughout Italy and wrote many treatises, including different rituals and prayers to battle various types of demons and spirits. Flagellum is centered on the practicing exorcist by giving instructions on behavior, like patience, perseverance, formless gestures, I believe also what you're wearing, and the time and place for the exorcism it's as well, like not just anywhere and whenever time, and that whether they should be done privately or publicly, which I thought was interesting. Why would you do it publicly? But, so be it. Fustus focuses on the nature and power of the demons, including causing illnesses. So I think each demon had like a specific illness that it would cause, and it would lead you to believe, oh, it's this demon. So that, again, how inclusive is that? That's pretty good. The next volume was Compendium Artis Exorcistes, and it's the fifth work written by Zaccaria Visconti, and he was a demonologist from Milan. In this work, Visconti describes the physical signs to recognize a person possessed by a demon. This section also gives a long list of herbal remedies in the form of oils, fumes, and eye drops given to the indemonati, or the person possessed, to force them to expel the demons by throwing up or evacuating. I'm assuming evacuating is going to the bathroom. I don't know. Right?
I'm
assuming.
That, yeah.
Because then I started to say, if it's not, then do demons just reside in the upper half? They don't go down to the lower half? They just stay above, so you can only throw them up. You can't poop them out. I'm just asking. But,
and you got to make sure you have a window open.
Right, there you go. There you go. Crucial part to the whole exorcism. And then the final section was the Fuga Satanate, Satanate, written by the Italian priest Pietro Antonio Stampa. The sixth session of the Thesaurus is considered one of the most important and most popular manuals of exorcism. The section gained the most notoriety due to the different names and titles of the devil, his assistants, and other demons, and then a list of holy scriptures that can be used to fight each one of them. Also, Stampa was considered one of the greatest authorities in the fight of demonic forces. And if you go into the text itself, there are sections, and it's so dense, and I didn't want to bore people with the images of just texts, but there are sections of Psalms. In this manual that you're using as well.
Wow.
It's weird. Yeah.
See,
but it's highly regarded by invoking demons.
Again, like when I was even talking about one other time where something looked as a recipe. How do you know? Sometimes at that I would wonder, is this something I'm actually supposed to not take at face value, and it's a code, a code possibly. I don't know.
Right.
Oh, and now it's me. Sorry,
Not
I was looking at my notes. I didn't actually see what was up on the screen for that second.
Oh, you're fine.
All right, yeah, I actually had 2 more books to do, but I think I'm going to stop at this one. And
Okay.
do you have another one after this?
I have one more, but
okay.
That's good.
No. We'll end it there then. I think I thought this was actually going to go by a lot faster, so my apologies. I thought we needed a bunch of books. All right, so this one, the Kabbalah of Baal Shem Tov, or Tov, however you say that. And there we go. It was an encyclopedic compendium of practical Kabbalah, of tremendous scope, remedies, protections, amulets. It included thousands of alphabetical entries with much information not known from any other source, with numerous diagrams and illustrations. It is most important manuscript known today on remedies and practical Kabbalah from Ashkenazic countries. Superior in its scope and quality to all manuscript compendiums and printed works on these topics. So this, supposedly considered the shit, I guess. It includes rare material, some of which does not appear in any other source. It also tends to say that it bears witness to the medical knowledge, Sergalat, amulet texts, incantations again, and stuff used by Balai Shem, which were healers of that period, and in the time of Baal Shem Tov. The significance of the manuscript also lies in its early mentions of the Baal Shem Tov and in the explicit documentation it provides of the Kabbalistic secrets which the Baal Shem Tov received from our Adam Baal Shem. So that was another person that I guess had something to say. The main part of the manuscript, which is from pages 1 to 240, was written by a skilled scribe who compiled thousands of prescriptions and texts from various sources and arranged them alphabetically in chapters. Neat Ashkenazic script with many precise and beautiful and masterfully drawn diagram and illustrations. There was additions that were later inserted by various writers in different places in the manuscript and in blank leaves that remained. Again, like some of these books, sometimes there'll just be extra blank pages near the end or the beginning. Later leaves were also bound with the manuscript. It is evident that the manuscript served several generations of folk healers and Balai Shem, which again were healers, and was passed on from one to another for practical use. The manuscript comprises thousands of entries covering a wide range of topics. Again, for amulets and incantations, protections of the home against thieves, fire, and demons, protections for journeys, protections from energies, wild beasts, bandits, and sorcerers. There was amulets for pregnancy, easy birth, protection for the mother and baby. There was remedies in there for illnesses and ailments. There was instructions for uncovering hidden matters and future events. to become invisible. There was sorcery, things for evil spirits and the evil eye. There was stuff on demons and angels as well. Ways of how to have a plentiful livelihood and wealth. You always got to toss that one in there.
Yeah.
It's a good selling point. This section concludes with a warning that it should only be done in case of great necessity. In many places, the writer notes tried and true. The manuscript is filled with rare and impressive Kabbalistic drawings and made with detail and accuracy. And again, it does have a lot of stuff with angels and demons. There's another one where the amulet is meant to protect a woman from imaginations and evil spirits. Other illustrations includes the Star of David, hands, menorahs, and other shapes. It's very interesting because I do think, this is just my opinion, the dreidel and the menorah is all occult shit. When you're spinning that dreidel, you just tuck the top of the tree of life and spun that motherfucker. That's my opinion. Sale of the book, real quick, just not too long ago. It sold for $120,000. So that was worth a lot of something to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And here's some of the pictures. We'll go through it. Again, it's kind of interesting. You have the magic squares again. Something that is common in like almost every old magical manuscript in grimoire. Letters and numbers. I mean, the value. Again, more symbols. You even start to notice, like even throughout some of the ones we showed, you start to see the same ones used over and over again. Here again, like some of these might, to me, even look a little bit like some of the ones you showed.
Mm-hmm. They do. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool to look at. And there's another one. Very interesting. And then that is you.
Yeah. Mine's super short. If you
Okay,
don't.
go for it.
Yeah. So I'm going to refer to this one, Degrees of Truth, for the sake of everybody. This one is probably one of the most artistic grimoires that I looked at throughout this week of looking at grimoires. It pretty much is like just looking at a picture book because of all of the art in it. But this, the Degrees of Truth is a manuscript that was written in Persian and falls into the genre of dazzlement magic. It's filled with 51 paintings of jinn kings, angels, and spirits of the lunar mansions and the like. So the image on the left is the angel from the fourth mansion of the moon, which is shaped like a two-headed dragon with a bird in front of him. And then the image on the right is the angel Samaras, he's wearing a crown, mounted on a horse, and is about to strike a dragon whose mouth is open with his sword. It is said to have been written by al-Nazir or Nazir al-Din Ramal in the 13th century, which 1272-1273 AD to be specific. And it's originating in the Seljuk Anatolia, which has an interesting backdrop just very quickly. Anatolia is basically today Turkey. And so it's like the westernmost section of the Asian continent. And so it used to be Christian at one point, and then it was taken over by the Seljuk Empire, which was a Turco-Persian, Sunni, whatever, in like 1st century. And so they pretty much ingrained most of the Muslim culture into Anatolia, and that's where you have all of these Islamic or Persian type grimoires coming out of. So, and this actual location of Anatolia, and then during this cultural era of Seljuk, was basically the link between the east and west of the medieval world. So I think this pretty much served as like the meeting point between the outer parts of Asia and then Europe and then the lower parts of Middle East. So it was probably like like Turkey. It was probably like a great way to start mixing most of that information and knowing what it is. So the image on the left is a jinn from Takvin passage of the sun from Gemini to Cancer. It has the body of a fish, a human head, and in one hand holds a crab and the other a branch. The middle one is a jinn from Takvin of the passage of the sun from Taurus to Gemini. It has the shape of a two-headed sheep, near which a tree with 4 birds are perched. And then on the far end is the angel Danhis, represented seated on a throne and holding in one hand a spear and in the other a fruit. On its side is Thegasus and Targaman. Yeah. Yeah.
Before you move on, I do want to say something about that one on the left.
Yeah, go ahead.
To me, that reminds me very much of, I could be screwing this up, the Knight of Cups maybe in the Thoth deck. He is holding the cup and it has the crab in his hand and he's going up like that. And I think the way this depicts it is, my opinion, is perfect. This is going back to the Eyeball series. I think you have Tiferet, which is the sun, and pink salmon is one of the colors for it.
Yeah.
Salmon also swims upstream.
Mm-hmm.
You're now heading towards Kether, and inside your eyeball, that would be heading towards the nerves in your vitreous humor, and then straight to that crab that looks just like your fucking optic nerve.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
With the liquid in your eye. And I think that's, again, I even think that Islamic stuff is deeply embedded in the OTO and people don't even realize it. Deeply embedded.
Yeah. And so much has not been translated.
So I would even question the fact that he's holding that thing. Is that where Crowley or whoever got the idea that drew that card with that person holding the cup and a crab in it like that? It just seems very...
Yeah. No, I'm very fascinated by all of this Arabic text coming out, looking into these grimoires.
Holy.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Nice. In the Degrees of Truth, the angel Metatron is also depicted. Just as a way to tie it all together, so the Kabbalistic mystical texts, Metatron is considered the highest of the angels closest to God, and Jewish apocryphal texts have him associated with Enoch. Metatron also appears in the Islamic tradition, where he is called Metatron, the angel of the veil. So these images, the one on the far left is a jinn from Takvin of the passage of the sun, from Scorpio to Sagittarius, with a human bust on the body of a quadruped. His tail ends in a dragon's head on which he unhooks arrows. The center image is Metatron, which is Metatron, shown standing, holding a spear in one hand and in the other a magic table. And then the image on the far end is a jinn from Takvin that from the station, it's, I believe it's like this jinn that has 3 different heads. I don't know if it's a snake and then I couldn't make it out, but it's different 3 heads that are depicted later. And then it has a giraffe with the head resting it on its back end or on its tail. But I was like, wow, they even have Metatron in their grimoire. So included.
And that does go back. Sorry, this was unexpected. That does go back to Metatron is also like the highest thing, kind of amongst Kether. You know, in Kether and the Tree of Life, Metatron's like the top dude before you get to God.
And they say that he sits like right before it, right? And they talk about the mansions and everything leading up. So to me, that sounds like the levels, hierarchies. So Grimoire contains 5 treatises consisting of astrology, angelology, magic, talisman and magic squares, which is possibly the zodiac, and then prognostication. In these images, the one on the far left is a conjunction of the moon and Mercury in the form of a man wearing a turban seated. With his 4 hands, he's holding snow, fire, a qualm, which is a type of reed pen, and a book. In the center is the conjunction of the moon and Venus, in the form of a seated man with 4 hands holding a bosque drum, a flute, and playing a stringed instrument. This reminds me of the whole cymatics, the music and sound and everything, moving matter, or why they would depict it. And then the image on the far end is conjunction of the moon and the sun in the form of a man with the head of a sun and 4 hands holding a knife, crown, candle, and I couldn't make out the rest, and then seated on a lion. And they didn't include it, so when I looked it up, they didn't have it listed. It was just knife, crown, and candle. And then, final slide is, so I included these images because there were so many to even pick from to showcase. But I found these pretty fascinating. And one of them is a multitude of faces within spheres. The next one is a 2-headed turtle, which is the shape of a jinn from Takvin of the 4th mansion of the moon. And then the far end was an angel presiding at the 2nd mansion of the moon, having the appearance of 2 serpents, one red, the other green, facing each other and having human arms. And this Degrees of Truth is housed at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. So,
see, even here I see a lot of, because of stuff that we've pointed out that I don't think we were too off with the eyeball symbolism. Again, even with the Grateful Dead, the turtles. And even another thing, not to get too far into it, but if there's anybody who's listening and they've had magical experience or they think they've gotten close to crossing the abyss or whatever, I have heard of people, saying that there's times where either it's a circle or it's a hallway or whatever, but you will see like flashing images going past you before you make it to this like explosion of light. And if you kind of get that idea of all these flashing images going past you and like almost cutouts, it's like John Lennon's cellophane skies or whatever the fuck he was saying. It literally looks like cellophane pictures flying past you. I could see myself standing in the middle of a train station and cars flying by, which is why I think that those turtles are on Terrapin Station on their album. But like that again to me represents to the eyes, and then this one to the right. Again, you have the optic nerve on the bottom that I was mentioning before as you're going into the out part of your eye, going from the back of your eye into your optic nerve. And then at the top is exactly how it crosses into your brain. Yeah.
And then the shell of the turtle
would be your cornea, yeah, because it looks like a shell of it. It looks like a turtle shell or a desert floor.
Right.
That got walked on for 40.
And they're hexagram. They're hexagonal.
Yeah.
The shells themselves the sections of the shell are hexagonal, and then the actual cornea cells are hexagonal themselves as well. So.
All right, sorry. Continue.
Okay, I am done with that.
Yes, and this last one, unfortunately, we are not going to cover because it's going to take too long. I was going to actually go into the Grand Grimoire because out of that you get the Red Dragon Grimoire, and then you can think of Red Dragon from Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. So, but to be totally honest with you, I probably will now release this as old and obscure. But I really didn't want to call it old and obscure if I was going to include the Grand Grimoire because there is just like, that's like the one that everybody knows about.
Right.
So like at that point, it wasn't like obscure because everybody knows about that one, my opinion. So we're not going to cover that just because it's already past an hour and a half. Right. And I do actually want to try to keep some of these Occult Reject shows down to a little bit shorter in time and just multiple episodes, just so people don't get burnt out. You know. So, that is the end of the Manuscripts and Grimoires. I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought that went great for a live. I thought that went just as smooth as last week, and I'm loving the new format and way that we are trying to present our information and our topics. And, again, I'm very happy with the way the chat turned out. I'm glad that I went live. We had a lot of good stuff being said in there, a lot of the usual faces, the usual Magi's. You were all in there adding to the topics and into what we were showing, and I love it. I love the fact that you guys are adding stuff in there. Like I say in every episode, check out the chat as well. Yeah. You're going to learn something or find something to look into just from reading the chat, we definitely had the occult rejects kicking ass in the chat today.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yes. And thank you all for jumping in and checking it out. Hopefully, it was just something to bring awareness and somewhat education. There's a lot of things out there. I just think that the normal everyday person and unfortunately even the normal everyday occultist and conspiracy theorist actually don't know about. So I like trying to show that there's a lot more out there than we know and than I even know. So hopefully these types of shows are helping. And that's enough out of me. Thank you very much, Lisa. You kick ass as usual, which is why you're here, and which is why hopefully we will both be here again next week. Mm-hmm. And the live that we will be doing next week will be kind of like old occultists, too. People from the past that you really have not heard about, but might have actually been pretty influential down the line. So, again, another series, kind of like another show like we've been doing. And that should be around the same time next Friday as well, around 1:30. The Occult Rejects will be going live again. Hope to see all of you there. And until then, everybody have a good one. Later.